Yes guys, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Nacho and this is the Game Week 3 live stream. So good to be back doing these live streams on Friday. Can't wait to get involved in this one. There's going to be plenty to discuss in this live stream. Just a quick roundup. I'm going to be covering my team going into Game Week 3. Bit of a spoiler alert, I have 2 free transfers and a little bit no idea what I'm doing. So we're going to cover that off early doors. Going to be looking at fixtures going ahead and when you should look to wildcard in your team. Then we're looking at the predicted points for Game Week 3. Important for you guys to know who the players to target are and those to avoid. And then also we're going to be wrapping up on Captaincy because of course we have a big debate this week. Do we go Salah? Do we go Haaland? Do we go Kane? Do we go Gabriel Jesus? We have so many options available to us this week. So it's going to be really important to get that decision right. So hopefully I can help you guys out with that decision. So again, if you are new around here, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. We are dropping daily content so you don't be missing out on a thing. And as always, if you do enjoy the stream, make sure you do drop a like on it. We always try and hit 50 likes and you guys have always stuck to that. So it's excellent to see week in, week out. And again, if you are tuning in, make sure you do drop a hi in the chat. It's great to see the usuals in there. Cheekster, a regular, hope you're doing well. And Rio's already got a question involved. Again, guys, if you are in the stream, make sure you do put any questions you have. This is the point of these live streams, is to get a chance for me to answer any questions that you have, and I'll try my best to try and provide the best information possible. So I see Rio saying here about need advice. Start 2 of the following: De Silva, Patterson, or Neto. So I think if you're bringing in De Silva into your team, I really do think I'd probably need to start him. I think I'd probably go for De Silva and Patterson because I'm not very optimistic on Neto myself. I think Spurs are going to get a comfortable victory there. Although they didn't play well against Chelsea necessarily, I think Chelsea just tactically gave Spurs no opportunity to breathe in that game. I expect a much better Spurs team against Wolves. And on that basis, I think I would start De Silva and Patterson, even though I'm not too confident on Everton clean sheet, whoever it is. And Cheeksy saying, good evening, FPL Nacho. Hope you're well. I'm doing very well. So good to have Friday. And importantly, it's so nice not to have a crazy deadline stream in the sense of we can discuss conversations here and not have a ticking clock in the right hand side of my screen here. We can really go into a bit of detail about the FPL decisions that we want to make and importantly answer some of your questions in a bit more detail, so hopefully they can help you out a little bit. So again guys, if you're on the chat, make sure you do drop a like. Don't forget KDB jackpot yet. KDB could be amazing value this week. Obviously, always is fantastic value. Milo, hope you're doing well. And Basil saying, hi Nacho, I would need your advice. Pick only 2: Rodrigo versus Chelsea, De Silva versus Fulham, or Zinchenko versus Bournemouth. So if I had to pick 2, first and foremost, Zinchenko has to be the pick. Your number 1 pick there. Yes, Bournemouth could put out a good performance at home, but I think Zinchenko, you're going to kick yourself if you have not necessarily a premium defender, but a premium player, a premium defence. I class Arsenal as now. I don't think you can bench Zinchenko, and I think the ownership in the Arsenal defence is going to be quite considerable, so you can't really afford to bench an ownership in an Arsenal defence. So Rodrigo versus Chelsea and De Silva versus Fulham. Bit controversial here because naturally you probably would be tempted to go to Rodrigo, and I think that probably is going to be the decision for you to go for, but on paper, I prefer De Silva against Fulham. I think the minutes, though, for Rodrigo would tempt me to go for him. Yes, it's against the Chelsea team. I would expect to have more chance for clean sheet, but Rodrigo is probably going to play as the forward in that team while Bamford is absent. So I like Rodrigo as the pick, even though De Silva could do well against Fulham. Elron, hope you're doing well. Evening. Tom Nacho, how important do you think team value will be this season with unlimited transfers during the World Cup? Yeah, that's an excellent question Tom mentioned in there. And something we are going to be discussing a little bit more detail in this stream because we're talking about when to wildcard this season. And importantly, when you are wildcarded later on in the season, naturally, if you have accumulated team value, when you do come to wildcard, you're going to have a larger budget to spend on players, which is going to give you a larger pool of players to select. So I really do think that team value is quite important at the start of the season. And I think team value, if it's ever going to be at its most important, it's going to be at the start of the season because we get so many price changes week in, week out. It's an opportunity to capitalize on the players that are actually really showing great value. So for example, Martinelli, if you didn't go on him early doors, he's now I believe 6.3 million. That's a 0.3 million gain, which would be a 0.1 million sell on price if you had Martinelli. So I think team value
it's most important at the start of the season. And again, we're going to touch on when to wildcard later on, because that is going to have an implementation, an impact on when you do wildcard and obviously the players that you're bringing on that team value basis. So keep putting the questions in the comments, guys. I'm going to drop over to the next slide. We can talk about my team ahead of game week 3. Have a little bit of discussion about what my initial plans are. I have 2 free transfers, money in the bank, and we'll continue to answer the questions as we go through the live stream. So again, if you do enjoy it, make sure you do drop a like. Massively appreciate it. Okay, let's go. Right then, guys. So as I mentioned, I currently have 2 free transfers in the bank, and 0.5 million in the bank. So this is how my current team is set up now. Caveat right now, I don't know about the status of Andreas Pereira right now. If you guys know in the chat, please do let me know. But I've currently got him starting in my team. Back 4 of Cancelo, Trent, James and Nico Williams. Salah, Diaz, Andreas Pereira and Martinelli. And Jesus and Haaland up top. Jesus with the captaincy as we speak. But I feel the closer we get to the deadline, the closer I'm going to be tempted to put the captaincy on Mo Salah. But again, a bit more detail on that later on in this live stream. And on the bench, Neto, Trippier and Archer. So what are my current plans? Well, first and foremost, Perisic was penciled in before the season started. Before the season started, guys, honestly, game week 1, I left money in the bank intentionally to upgrade Trippier into Perisic. That was the plan. But there's been a lot of chat about people thinking that Perisic isn't going to play, isn't going to get guaranteed game time. And that started to maybe go a bit cold on that transfer. However, and it is a big however, I just love the upside that Perisic offers in fantasy football. I think he could be an amazing FPL option. So the reason why I am still really wanting to bring Perisic in is because of that early kickoff. I think if Spurs didn't have the early kickoff on the Saturday, I would rule out Perisic as an option. But because he is the early kickoff, I think it's a fantastic opportunity just to wait until the deadline. Obviously, try and make the transfer before the deadline and just see if we can get any early team news. Again, there are some great accounts out there on Twitter. I don't know them off the top of my head, but there are some trusted ones out there. And I think if you're in a similar situation to me where you're looking to sell Trippier and Perisic is in the back of your mind right now, as long as price changes, and again, make sure you head over to fantasyfootballfix.com to track the prices. That's the best place to do so. Then holding off that transfer might just be the smartest thing you can do, because I personally, with money in the bank, want Perisic in my team. I am happy, not happy, but I am willing to make that sacrifice of him coming off after 70 minutes week in, week out for that upside that he might bring to the team. So if you're on a similar situation to me, you have Trippier, you're looking to sell. If you can ride out the prices, I think there's value there in case we get team news closer to the deadline. Now, the other player that I'm currently considering selling is going to be Neto. Now, this was a very difficult one for me because whereas at Trippier, I'm currently considering Perisic, Kyle Walker and Cucurella. Those are the 3 options that I'm currently considering, and I view all of them as great long-term options until I wildcard. I see nothing around around Neto's price that I have any sort of real trust in. So Pascal Gross has currently got the plaudits right now, and I do think Pascal Gross is a decent option, but again, we're looking at very small sample size. Brighton don't score tons and tons of goals. That's my main worry with Pascal Gross. Are we going to get another situation where a lot of people talk about Wolves not scoring a lot of goals and Neto therefore not scoring many points? Are we going to get the same situation with Pascal Gross? So that's the reason why I'm hesitant to sell Neto right now. I just don't like any of the options available. And then the other caveat is I go down to someone like De Silva at Brentford, but then I think the structure of my team, I don't feel too comfortable about it then and there. It requires me to then have additional transfers to spend that money in the bank. So again, not something that I'm intended to do. And that's why currently I'm really struggling to flog Neto as we speak. So again, if I come to an epiphany later on this live stream, I will let you guys know and I'll tell you what direction I'm going in my team. But as we speak, I think Trippier is going to be leaving my team. Perisic is the priority, but I need to get that team news closer to the deadline. Otherwise, I can see myself going safer with someone like Kyle Walker, capitalising on his fixtures coming up for Man City and hoping that he starts each and every one. But let me know in the chat, guys, if you are a Trippier owner right now or a Neto owner, what are your current transfer plans with them? I've seen some managers out there actually decide to hold Trippier, and I definitely see an argument for it. Game week 4, they play away against away against Wolves, which I think is a decent fixture for Trippier. And then they have Liverpool. And again, Liverpool on paper is a very tricky fixture, but Newcastle could cause them problems. And then after that, Newcastle have fantastic fixtures. So if you can afford to bench Trippier, I think there's definitely an argument to do that there for sure. So that is my team there, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are. Predicted points are 52. But again, I'm currently debating where to go with the captaincy, whether to go for Mo Salah or to go for Gabriel Jesus. Again, it'd be interesting for you guys to let me know in the chat, who is your current captaincy plan right now? I see Master J saying, best replacement for Darwin out of Havertz or Tony, loving both fixtures. I think when we are looking at replacements, we need to make sure that we look beyond just one fixture. And based on that, I think Tony is the choice for me. Again, we're going to come into the fixtures in a minute and about what's coming up. But Tony, with his fixtures coming up, being on penalties and being in a better formation for him at Brentford right now, whereas before with Christian Eriksen, prior to his time with Christian Eriksen the team, he had to drop deep, be the creator of that Brentford team. Now that they've filled the Eriksen role with De Silva or whoever in that role, it means that Tony can operate as a forward. I think with the way they got Mbeumo playing alongside him as well, I like Tony longer term. I'm not too confident on Havertz as a goal scorer in this Chelsea team right now. And who knows, if they bring in Aubameyang, that's going to have a negative effect on Havertz's minutes. Elron Cupboard, what a name. Will Rodrigo rise tonight? It's an excellent question right now. And if you give me 2 seconds, I can see what our Fantasy Football Fix app is saying. Again, guys, make sure you do check it out. It is free to download and you can keep up to date with all of the information on the potential FPL price changes. Now, Rodrigo is currently over the 100% progress bar at 108%. Now, worth noting for those that don't know, wildcard transfers do not impact price changes. So it is worth noting that sometimes it can affect the kind of way that they are predicting price changes. But right now, I think if you are planning on bringing in Rodrigo, tonight would be the night just to avoid a potential FPL price change. Stephen Lord saying in the chat, hi, what do you think about Pascal Gross, please? Okay, so Pascal Gross, a player that I am considering right now, underlying stats-wise have been good. 2 goals, about a 1.58 XG, so that is decent viewing. And it didn't all just come in the Man United game, it also come in the second game that they had as well. So he has been decent in both games. But again, my one worry is about Brighton as a team and as a goal-scoring team. I don't see them necessarily scoring week in, week out 3 or 4 goals. But again, the issue is the players in that price bracket, there's not many available. Neto, playing in a Wolves team that don't score many goals, and Gordon, for example, scoring in a team that don't score many goals. So it is a very difficult one and a bit of a headache for us owners. Now, if you are looking at Pascal Gross, I like him mainly because of the fixtures coming up. If you look at the touch heat map for him, he is operating quite high and alongside Welbeck, which is really promising to see. And Brighton have been screaming out for a box-to-box midfielder, which is actually going to be scoring goals. Gross could fill that role. He has been operating as a right wing back, and he does sometimes in that Brighton team, but the way that they are so fluid in their formation and their way they press, Gross does find himself really high alongside Welbeck. So no, I have absolutely no, arguments for people going for Pascal Gross. I just worry about Brighton as a goal-scoring team as general. And George 100 is saying, thoughts on Neto to a 4.5 million and upgrade Nico Williams to Cucurella. Okay, so I like that move, but I view Nico Williams as a decent 4 million option. Now, of course, if you hate everything in the Neto replacement range, and of course, I do think that going down to a 4.5 million, like De Silva or Andres Pereira, are good options at 4.5 million or 4.6 for De Silva. Upgrading to Cucurella is a nice move at 5 million, but again, you have other considerations. If you haven't got an Arsenal coverage, you could get Gabriel. You could also go sideways to Kyle Walker if you have 5.1 million in the bank. So guys, that is my team now. I will come back to it later on in the stream, but I'm just going to show you the current fixtures coming up from game weeks 3 to game weeks 8. Now, the reason I've got this on the screen right now is we need to remember that the wildcard is still in our back pocket. Now, for some managers, they may have already done it. And wildcard is so team dependent that I can't sit here and say to you exactly when playing your wildcard is the best time to do so. But the reason I've got game weeks 3 to game weeks 8 is because between game weeks 8 and 9, we have the international break. Now, a little bit of a FPL myth is that FPL price changes go crazy throughout the international break and you kind of ride the price changes and get a massive team value. That isn't necessarily all the case. You will find it's a lot quieter in terms of price changes than a lot of managers kind of let on. But what it does is it gives you an opportunity to have a 2-week break to use your wildcard and ride out any potential international break transfers. The big worry is if you were to wildcard in game week 7 and then all these players go on international break and suffer niggles or little injuries, then there could be an issue for you and your wildcard team could be redundant after just one game week. So that's why if you are looking at your team right now and thinking, damn, this team's pretty template, the template is banging right now, I don't need to move away from it. If you can get yourself to game week 8 just on free transfers alone, I think that's a really powerful position to be in, because then you could wildcard during the international break, get an understanding of if players have come through the international break fit and raring to go. Then you could look to build a squad for game week 9 onwards. So with that kind of mindset, these are the best teams with the fixtures over the next 6 game weeks. And again, we can break it down again if you only want to look at shorter game weeks. But I want to look at it from now until when I would necessarily wildcard. And that's why the likes of Pascal Gross and Tony are being so heavily discussed right now. Because not only are their underlying stats fantastic, but their fixtures going forward are also very, very good. And when I do look to bring in transfers, I look at a few things. Underlying stats, first and foremost, are very important, more than the output necessarily. But when we are looking at such small sample sizes, we need to take it with a pinch of salt. Next up, I look at fixtures. Are the fixtures good going forward? Because it can skew our decision making if Brighton have played the 2 worst teams in the league and then they come up to the worst teams possible to play. So it is worth noting that. So fixtures, underlying stats, and importantly, which I think is underrated, is the team in itself. Brighton and Brentford both have started the season very, very strongly. And I think that's a really big, impactful thing when we are considering our transfers, to actually see how the team as a whole are operating. And I see Brighton and Brentford as 2 teams that have been coached so well with their managers, and teams that are coming into a few seasons deep in the coaching, which I think is really important. We're getting a team that understand the way they want to play. And with these fixtures coming up, I think in the investment in maybe one player from each team is quite a wise move. So that's why De Silva and Tony from Brentford are fantastic options, and why Gross is being talked about a lot in this Brighton team. And also Dunk at 4.5 million in that defensive line. So let me know in the chat, guys, what your thoughts are right now. Are you considering a Brentford or a Brighton player? Now, again, another reason why I've got this up on your screens is because there are fixture swings coming up which are worth noting. Now, Arsenal, Chelsea, you could argue, are sometimes fixture-proof alongside the likes of Liverpool and Man City. But template-wise right now, a lot of us are in on triple Arsenal, and we have a few Chelsea floated around. And I think that is going to remain strong between now and game week 8, because the fixtures are fantastic for both teams. I see no reason to move away from them. And if not, I'd say probably invest heavilier. What kind of word's that? Invest more heavy in their assets, because the fixtures remain strong. So if you're in a position right now where you're thinking, oh, Arsenal might have a bad game week this week against Bournemouth, they might struggle, should I ship out their players? Just look longer term, guys. The fixtures are fantastic for them, and the same applies to Chelsea. If you are bringing in Cucurella and he doesn't keep a clean sheet against Leeds, please do not be reactionary. Look at the fixtures going forward. Leicester, Southampton, West Ham, Fulham, still fantastic fixtures. So don't just judge it based on that one game in isolation. So again, guys, I will skip on to the next screen in a minute, because we'll be looking at game weeks 9 onwards and how the fixtures start to swing for teams, and teams that aren't on this list are going to emerge as fantastic options going forward. And again, why I think it kind of really grounds on why wildcarding game week 9, well, game week 8 going into 9 is the best move for you to make after the international break. So I can see some conversations, some comments in the chat. We got Amesh saying best 5 million defender at the moment. I think if you are strict to your budget and you only have 5 million available, then we only have a few options. I think Cucurella at 5 million is a fantastic option. I think he will get game time in that Chelsea team. I also like Gabriel. I know Zinchenko has risen in price in that Arsenal team. You can see the fixtures for them are brilliant. And I would argue from a defensive perspective, they are good as well. But because of an excitement perspective, I think I would go for Cucurella as the option ahead of Gabriel. Karim saying, from Egypt, I love you, man. Love you too, buddy. Great to see you tuning in. Alice Simpson, what are your thoughts on Robertson? Okay, so this is a really interesting one, because I see a lot of managers are currently giving up on Liverpool right now from a defensive perspective. Now, I think that comment is probably a little bit false there. The reason people are giving up on Robertson right now is because of the value invested in him. We're seeing some fantastic options emerge at 2 million cheaper. So, for example, Cucurella. I wouldn't say Kyle Walker falls in the same bracket, but people are perceiving Perisic as a brilliant option that can offer both clean sheets and obviously attacking returns. Reece James, an example. So it isn't necessarily people have given up on Robertson. It's just what else is out there in the market at a cheaper price, which means you can invest elsewhere. So I'll give you an example. A lot of people tuning into the live stream right now might have Robertson and Neto. Absolutely hate what's out there right now for Neto replacements. However, if you were to, for example, drop Robertson all the way down to a 5 million option in Cucurella, that suddenly gives you 2 million to invest elsewhere. And that could mean you going from Neto, maybe up to someone like Gundogan if you think he's a fantastic option. It's just going to give you so much more flexibility in your team. So while I think Liverpool will come good, we always have this worry about teams where you think, oh no, they're not going to keep clean sheets. And then they just go on that run like champions do. I fully expect Liverpool to go back to a clean sheet ways. However, I think we need to remember what the combinations are. So for example, Robertson plus Neto or Cucurella plus Gundogan. That's another conversation right there. It isn't just simple as Robertson or no Robertson. So I think it's very much team dependent. If you think you need the funds elsewhere to upgrade another player, I think Robertson is an okay sacrifice because I think the likes of Cucurella, while I don't think they'll keep up to pace with Robertson's point scoring, he could do okay ticking along. So I think that's my views on Robertson there. Nongrum saying love from India. I hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for tuning in. Cameron, is it worth taking a -4 for Trippier to Cucurella or Walker maybe? Okay, so if it's a -4, I'm actually going to say no. Now, I personally don't expect Newcastle to get absolutely destroyed 3-4-0. Therefore, I think if you need to start Trippier, I don't think it's absolutely the worst thing. We need to remember, Trippier on set pieces as well gives us other avenues for points. So I think Trippier is not worth a -4 point sell because then in game week 4, they have got Wolves away, which I think is an okay fixture. Yes, they've got Liverpool after that, but then they come into a really good run of fixtures. So -4, I wouldn't make that move for this week. Hugh Weezy saying, Andreas is giving me headaches. Yes, again, guys, if there are any news about, If there are any news about Andreas Pereira's fitness, please do drop it in for my sake and for Hugh Weezy's sake here. But right now, I think if we don't get any news about it, I'm going to be forced to use 2 free transfers, me personally, because obviously rolling out a player that you have no certainty about the game time in is a little bit of a worry going into this week. Tom said Team News and Ticks on Instagram is predicting Perisic to start. Okay, I think he's quite a reliable source, Tom's saying, so that might be worth noting. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. And YS is saying, where can I find the accounts? Okay, Tom's covered that one. And Steven said, I think Neto could be a price decrease risk if kept. Exactly that. I think sometimes if you do hold trust in someone like Neto, you got to be really, really strict with it because naturally Neto, if he has another blank, which we are intending against Spurs, I think there's going to be more sellers and naturally his price will fall from 5.4 to 5.3 and it will continue to fall and eventually you're going to price yourself out of even more players. So that's a really solid point there. I do think that if you are going to hold Neto, you really need to hold him with the intention of starting him over the coming game weeks. I don't think that you can hold Neto thinking that, oh, but then I might sell him in game week 4. I think if you're going to sell him, you sell him this week and then that's it. You case closed on that one. So let's move on to game week fixtures 9 to 16. Just to give you an idea on how they do swing. Now, you'll see here that there are teams emerging that have not appeared in the previous slide. Just to give you a bit of perspective here. Bournemouth are top for fixtures between game weeks 9 and game week 16. But on the previous slide, game weeks 3 to 8, they had the worst fixtures. Brentford had the 3rd worst fixtures on this current slide, but they had the 2nd best on the previous slide. And Arsenal, who were, I believe, in the top 4 of the best fixtures, now between game weeks 9 and 16, have the 4th worst fixtures. There is a big swing over the international break going into this period. And what I really do like about this is a lot of people are moaning right now about the template being too template. Who would have thought? And a lot of people are thinking there's not enough differentials in the game that are actually offering value. Well, I really do think that playing safe with the template over the opening 8 game weeks. Again, if you're sat there right now with a Chelsea defender, a Liverpool defender, a Man City, Cancelo, you've got Haaland, Jesus, you're not moving away from them at all. I don't care what they do in the game weeks. Unless they get injured, you are going to be really, really brave to move away from some of these assets. So you're likely going to stick with the same, I'm going to argue, 11 to 12 players between now and game weeks 8, unless there are injuries. And I think that's probably the best move to make. I know it's boring, but just sometimes you need to stick with the template. However, when we get to game week 9, which you should be going into a game week 9 with a wildcard team if you go with this strategy, then we can start to pick up some of these differentials that are started to emerge. So for example, Bournemouth, Brentford, Leicester, Fulham, Southampton, who knows? When we get to this period, Dominic Solanke may emerge as a great option. He could be that 3rd forward that we were all craving at the start of the season. West Ham, no one spoke about Bowen over the opening game weeks, and I see no reason for him to be a consideration in the coming game weeks. But when we wildcard, Wolves, Fulham, Southampton, Bournemouth in game week 13, a fantastic option for us to go for someone like that in our wildcard teams, and Mitrovic coming into the equation for Fulham there. And who knows, at Everton, we might get Calvert-Lewin. So this is more of a case of, for those people that are a little bit worried right now, that FPL is getting a little bit boring, they're worried about their template teams just kind of going through each week, making the same moves. I'm really excited to see what we are going to be doing with our wildcard teams come the international break and beyond, because I think when the big teams have had the great fixtures to start the season, we're going to have those kind of teams on the outskirts who we know offer great value, but we're too scared to go to. This is going to be your opportunity to really capitalise. And if you are a brave FPL manager, to really start to make inroads on your ranks. So again, we might all sit with a template team come game week 8. Then you think to yourself, okay, this is my time. I'm going to go for the Bowens as a differential. I'm going to go for the Mitroviches. So hold tight. I think the fixtures are going to turn around this period, and this could be our chance to really capitalise and go differential with our transfers. So let me know in the chat, guys. What are your thoughts right now with the fixtures coming up? Are you holding with the template for now? I think it's the best move, and then we look to capitalise later on in the season. Rick's is saying I did Neto and Archer out in Reed and Tony. Don't mind it. Reed is an okay option for you in terms of just a budget option. Cameron saying already done Bailey to De Silva. Yes, that's going to free up some funds available to you. Hopefully that is going to help to strengthen your team elsewhere. Ari saying Zinchenko or Cucurella. Okay, so that's a really interesting question, because I think both pose similar problems, potential rotation risks. Now, a lot of discussion about Zinchenko maybe moving into the midfield when Arteta finally gives minutes to Tierney. It's back in the squad. It's only a matter of time until Tierney, gets them 10 minutes off the bench now and then, and slowly integrates back in the team. But I've seen Xhaka put in some fantastic performances to start the season. And I think the general narrative was that they were going to move to a midfield three of Thomas Partey, Odegaard and Zinchenko. But with Xhaka putting in these performances, I think there's a chance that Xhaka stays in that midfield three. Then does that mean Zinchenko gets a rotation risk? So Zinchenko, I think, offers rotation risk as well as Cucurella. I personally probably would go for, I think it falls to this. If you have Reece James and no Arsenal coverage, you go Zinchenko. If you have already like Ramsdale in goal and you have James in defence, I probably would double down with Cucurella just because of the attack and potentially offers with the likes of set pieces. Guma saying Eze for Neto. Okay, Eze is a very interesting one. As someone that's been really under the radar, picked up an assist in that Liverpool game. I like him. I haven't seen enough from him over last season, over the last year, to suggest that he's going to be Wilfried Zaha level kind of goal contributions. But I feel like Neto is placeholder in the team right now. It's very much a case for people to just be experimental. I think you've got the template team right now with all these players, high ownerships. The Neto price point right now feels like an opportunity for managers to just kind of dabble in different areas. So you want to go to Pascal Gross, you can go Pascal Gross with little risk because that spot in the team is very low ownership. So if you want to go Eze, you've already got these templates in that are going to kind of cover your rank. Maybe it's worth just going for Eze and just at that price point thinking, this is going to be my small risk in the team where, I fancy Eze. Only thing I would say, fixtures aren't kind for Crystal Palace. So it's probably not the best time to go in on Eze. But if you see things, you feel good, I don't mind Eze as a replacement. Basil saying, are you with me, Nacho, that Gundogan is a better pick from Foden in the long run this season? See, Basil, I think this is going to be very interesting and dependent on what the Bernardo Silva situation is. I think both Gundogan and Foden are going to be minutes risks. That's just how it is in a Pep Guardiola team, unfortunately. I think if I had to pick one, I still would go Phil Foden. If Bernardo Silva leaves, I'm all in on Gundogan. It is absolutely not a question. 7.5 million is a fantastic option for someone like Gundogan. But I think Foden is still the option I would be going for in the choice if I had money as no object. And Elron could be saying, I'm selling Rodrigo, hoping for a price rise before I say goodbye. Hopefully you get that price rise tonight because it looks like it could happen. And Zach saying, is it wrong to do wildcard now? My team is actually for Zach. This is exactly it. Although I've just covered for the last 15 minutes about the wildcard being an opportunity to do it during the international break because of the opportunity for the fixtures, because of the opportunity for injuries over the international break. If you started your team, and you guys need to remember this as well, picking your team in pre-season is one of the hardest decisions to start the season off. Now, this season might be a bit of an exception because the template was so strong and FPL priced the players in a manner that we could pick kind of low-risk options with really high ceilings like Jesus. Like that was just an obvious pick, Martinelli, etc. But if you started off at the start of the season,
you went for a few rogue choices and you're looking at your team thinking, I am treading water right now, I'm swimming against the tide, then I think it's an opportunity for you to take your wildcard and say to yourself, okay, I started the season poorly, this is time for me to reset, capitalise on some players that I know I need to own before their prices continue to rise, and then you move on. You can't always hold off until game week 8 to wildcard. If your team's in trouble, don't sweat about it, make that move and just move forward. Remember, we got unlimited transfers during the World Cup. Liv is saying, okay, similar question. Hopefully that covered you into the wildcard. And Chris is saying, awesome knowledge, keep up the great content. Thank you very much, Chris. Marco, Kane or Haaland, Saka or Diaz, Cucurella, Walker or Zinchenko? Okay, Marco, a few tricky questions there for me to answer, so I'll try and evaluate them. Haaland for me over Kane, but I think Kane is a fantastic option, but I still would choose Haaland. Saka or Diaz? I would say Diaz, at the caveat that you have Martinelli at 2 million cheaper than Saka. Cucurella, Walker or Zinchenko. This is an absolutely tricky one. Okay, so I think all in their own manner a potential rotation risk. I've touched on Zinchenko and Cucurella. Walker, I think, actually has become a bit more of a locked game time because they didn't sign Cucurella. Yes, they've got a new signing in who's going to be part of the squad week in, week out, but I don't really see Walker getting rotated over the coming game weeks. We need to remember that Walker's biggest asset is his pace. This week, they play against Newcastle with St. Maximin. They need Walker in that game for that potential counter-attack. And the following game week, I believe they have Crystal Palace. Again, who is a counter-attacking player? Wilfried Zaha. That means that Kyle Walker is pretty set to start that game, I would think. Don't hold me to that one. But I think Walker is pretty good for the next few game weeks, personally. And again, you need to remember that we're looking at a shorter time horizon. We're looking for 5 or 6 game weeks worth of value because then when we wildcard, we can move away from these players. So, you know, if I sat here and say to you, Walker's going to play 4 of the next 5, I think I'll be okay with that, to be honest with you. Cucurella the same, Zinchenko the same. If I'd pick one, it's so difficult because I would say if you've got James and you've got Cancelo and no Arsenal investment, you go Zinchenko. I think that's where I'll go. And again, guys, if you are enjoying it, please do drop the live stream. A like would be massively appreciated, as always. So, guys, we've covered my team off. We've covered off the upcoming fixtures. Hopefully that was useful in terms of when to use your wildcard. Let's dip into some predicted points for this game week because this is going to be really helpful for you guys to know players that you're potentially looking to bring in, where they fall on the charts. Okay, guys, so this is the predicted points here for game week 3. Now, it's worth noting, if you are a Fantasy Football Fix member on the site, then of course you know that the predicted points are ever changing. They are based on underlying stats, on news, on everything, expected minutes. So again, if you want to keep fully up to date with the predicted points, because they do change daily, make sure you do head over to Fantasy Football Fix to really keep in the know with the projected points. But this is how it's fallen right now for game week 3. So make sure you keep an eye on your players that you have in your team right now. But it's worth noting, the goalkeepers are always pretty much the same. You're always going to get the premium goalkeepers ranking highly on the projected points. You can see Edison there. You can see Mendy there as well. Interestingly, no Alisson there, which is quite a surprise. But if they do have the injuries that they've got, maybe they're not going to be as watertight defensively. So goalkeepers, yeah, we're not going to be making many goalkeeper transfers. But defenders, again, the usual suspects do apply. Cancelo, Trent, always going to be in and amongst it. Reece James as well. Now, what I do like to see is Kyle Walker there at 4.3 projected points. Now, again, we're never bringing in Kyle Walker for his attack and returns. That's just kind of like FPL kind of folklore. You just know you're never bringing in Kyle Walker for attack and returns. But what we are bringing him in for is a cheap enabler at double City coverage. If you don't want to go for the 5.5 million option in Edison, you go for the 5.1 million option in Kyle Walker. I like him as a double up alongside Cancelo. I would never choose Kyle Walker over Cancelo, it is worth noting. Even though there is a 2 million difference, never pick Kyle Walker over Cancelo as coverage because it just never comes off good. Okay, so the midfielders. And I always feel like the midfielders and the forwards are the ones that really do help you guys out because this is where we do look to put our captaincy. You can see here, projected points, Mo Salah is top for this game week. Who would have thought? 6.1 against this Man United team. Who knows what team Man United are going to roll out? They could roll out the team they had against Brentford, or they could roll out the team they had a few seasons ago where they put up a really stern performance against Liverpool. I can only see the former. I can only see another weak Man United performance. So if you are sat there right now and thinking to yourself,
Gabriel Jesus, I don't know if he can put in that sort of performance again. Haaland, is he going to get the sort of opportunities against a decent Newcastle team? I think Salah always falls back as that default option. Kevin De Bruyne is going to be continually a fantastic premium option week in, week out. It's just whether we can afford him in our teams, which is such a frustrating thing. But again, 6 predicted points, looking a fantastic option again. Now, the one I absolutely love, and nobody really has him, is Son. I think he's hovering around 16% ownership right now. Again, captaincy is such a huge part of FPL. Last season, when I finished 270th in the world, the absolute number one thing I put it down to is captaincy. Hitting that captaincy week in, week out is such a fundamental part to have a fantastic FPL season. And sometimes there are times to fight against the captaincy. And this week feels like it could be the one. Now, some weeks we get a captain that is just absolutely head and shoulders above the rest. Like last season, we had the likes of Salah at home to Watford. That's just crazy to go against someone like Mo Salah. But this week, with Liverpool's fixture, with Man City's fixture, with Arsenal's and Spurs' at home to Wolves, I really do view Son as the opportunity. If you've had a poor start to the season, you're not playing your wild card, but you want them small, slight opportunities of potential hauls, Son as a captain could be that very one. Again, I wouldn't really want to convince people to go against the likes of Salah and all, but Son, honestly, what a phenomenal option. His underlying stats, he's had 6 shots in the box over the last 2 game weeks. He hasn't started the season as strong as he could do, but that is some decent underlying stats to view. I like him as a differential captain if you are looking down that route. And Maddison, 5.4 predicted points now. News recently has dropped that Fofana and potentially Tielemans are not going to be playing for Leicester because they're still trying to force transfers. Is that going to negatively impact the team as a whole? That's something that I would consider if you are looking to bring Maddison into your teams. I think that's enough of a reason for me to think, oh, are Leicester going to be slightly weaker this season? And we know Leicester from a defensive perspective are just a no-go. That is just absolutely it. And forwards, guys, you can see there, Gabriel Jesus alongside Haaland at 5.7 predicted points. Jamie Vardy, again, you're just not going to be able to afford him in your teams. And then Harry Kane at 5.5. And interestingly, for those that have been looking to bring in Tony, really positive view in there, 4.6 predicted points. And I know long-term, he is a fantastic player on our predicted points over the next, basically 6 game weeks. He's right up there in the top 5. He looks a brilliant option. So I'll leave it on screen for you guys for the predicted points. Let me know in the chat, who is your current plans for captaincy, for transfers. It'll be really interesting to see. I'm going to dip back into the comments. We're going to answer some more in here. Hopefully I can help you guys out. So we got one here from Chirag saying, Dunk to replace Cresswell. Yes, so fixtures-wise for West Ham, a little bit mixed. I like Dunkers at 4.5 million. If you want to save a bit of funds, you want to have investment in a team that have great long-term fixtures and also are just decent defensively. So I wouldn't say that's an absolute pressing transfer, but I do like it as a move if you are going down that route. Jesus or Salah as captaincy this week. Make sure you stick around. I will drop onto the captaincy slide in a minute and we can discuss captaincy in detail. Hussein saying, would you start Patterson or Trippier? I'm leaning towards Patterson because of Everton being at home. Okay, so naturally on paper, I think Patterson probably is the option just because of the fixture being more favourable. I think it's very difficult to foresee a Newcastle clean sheet. So then you're kind of seeing Trippier as a attacking option. Yes, he's on set pieces. That could be another avenue for points. But I think Patterson is a decent start this week over Trippier if you are looking for it. And Ray just saying Eric Dyer. Now, my work colleague actually in game week 1 in pre-season said Eric Dyer in my team, and I convinced him not to, and he scored. So I don't want to be the guy who tells you not to bring in Eric Dyer. Look, Romero injury, which is going to impact them defensively, is worth noting. Dyer is absolutely locked into that Tottenham team, even when Romero is returning. If you want ownership in that Tottenham defence and you're really not interested in the wing-backs, which I think will be the priority once we get an understanding on who the starters are, then Dyer is an okay transfer in, but it's not going to be the biggest upside move for you. And a man saying Perisic and Neto to Cucurella and Gross, or Nico to Neto to Cucurella and second. Okay, so Perisic is a very, very tricky one right now because you've held this long and there's a chance that he does start this week. I think you're going to be absolutely kicking yourself if you sell him and you turn on your phone and see that Perisic is starting against Wolves. So I'd ask you first and foremost, why have you held this long? And I would probably hold Perisic. And again, it could backfire if he benched again. You're thinking to yourself, that's another bench and another 20 minutes off the bench. But
I think Perisic, you've held him this long, I'd probably hold him, to be honest with you. Now, of course, if you're looking at Neto and thinking there's no way I want him, I need to upgrade him, then yes, of course, Perisic is a cash cow in your team. You can go down to Cucurella, who probably arguably has better minutes. And I like Gross as an option for you. But for me, I probably would look to just hold Perisic as an option. I know it's tough right now, but you've got to question, why did you bring him in pre-season to start with? And Moshe saying, Neto to Dewsbury Hall or Gross. Okay, so Dewsbury Hall is a really interesting one, because the thing with Dewsbury Hall, what he does, and he done this last season, is he posted some okay output, but from some very low expected goals. So I think that's the big thing right now is worth noting, is unless he does advance in the team, it's worth noting if Tielemans does get sold, we could see a different change in the sort of positioning that Dewsbury Hall is operating. He could become a much more advanced player. So yes, Dewsbury Hall could become a fantastic option. If you anticipate him to be much more of a driving force in that midfield in terms of a late arriver in the box, then you could be moving early on him, and I don't mind that transfer. But otherwise, you probably go safer on Gross. You have that investment there, and you have the investment at 5.6 million. Then if you do find out that Dewsbury Hall is the ownership, you can come down from Gross into Dewsbury Hall. So I'd probably go that route right now, but I like Dewsbury Hall as a potential breakout player over the coming game weeks. And Mikel saying sell Grealish for Zaha. Look, I like Zaha, absolute talisman in that Crystal Palace team. If Crystal Palace need to do well, he will be absolutely the kind of driving force in that team. Now, based on fixtures coming up, it's worth noting. Let's just check these out for Crystal Palace. In the coming fixtures, they got Aston Villa at home. I think that's a great fixture. Chelsea, Man City away, tricky. Then Brentford, Newcastle, and Man United. So I actually think they're okay fixtures for Wilfried Zaha. And if you want to move in for him, I have absolutely no qualms with it. I think you're going to get guaranteed game time, potentially penalties as well. I'm not sure on the Palace kind of hierarchy right now for penalties. Grealish, unfortunately, I do think you're going to get this week in, week out where you're sweating over him. You're going to have to start him because he's too much investment to bench. I think for your own sanity, going to Zaha might be a nice move, but we have other options available, of course. If you haven't got Martinelli, that's the absolute priority right now in your team. And Hussein saying, is it worth taking a -4 to sell Neto? I'm very much against point sits. And importantly, we're -4 from Neto to maybe a player that is cheaper than him is not going to bode well, I don't think, longer term. If you're doing a -4 and it means that you go from Neto to, I don't know, in a crazy world, you're going for someone like Kevin De Bruyne, then yes, of course, I think that's worth the -4. FPL Rubber Ducky, quack, hope you're doing well, mate. Stephen Ingram, teams with good fixtures. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the chat here. 96 don't seem as attractive as those in the top 6. Might only change 3 or 4 and back the likes of Jesus in more difficult games. Yeah, so that's a really good point from Stephen there. And let's just bring up the fixtures just so we got them on the screen here for what we talked about. This is very much a case of, as I mentioned, for those managers that are really, and I've seen it quite a bit really, where some managers are being quite bored of the way that FPL is being played right now because it's so template. I really do view the opportunity wildcarding after game week 8 going into game week 9 is worth mentioning as the opportunity to maybe go for some of those players that you really wanted to go for but were just scared to go there because of the ownerships. So as I mentioned, the Bowens I think could be a brilliant option. Skamaka at West Ham could emerge as a brilliant option. I do foresee the template starting to shift around this sort of period. But of course, Jesus, Haaland, Salah, Martinelli, it's very difficult right now to foresee a world where we go against those players because we've only seen 2 game weeks. We naturally assume that they're going to be phenomenal value week in, week out. So yes, right now it's going to be very difficult to move away from the template. But for those managers that are a little bit tired of it, game week 8 afterwards could be the time to do it. In FPL, the Wyvern 1881, I think it says. So I've sold Darwin for Tony already. Would you -4 Rashford for Maddison? I think it depends on all the rest of your team, but for me right now, I would stick with the team that you've got. I wouldn't be taking the -4 from Rashford to Maddison. Now, yes, Maddison could do well in his game. I absolutely agree. And if you are to stick to the death of Rashford and you foresee Maddison as a long-term hold in your team, then yes, I do like the move. But otherwise, you have to remember -4 is very difficult for you to recoup in just 1 game week in isolation. So just remember that. But what I would say is Rashford right now just not offering great value. So, you know, if you're done with him, move him out from -4. I would only do that if I foresee him as a 5 game week hold where you really think you're going to capitalise on the fixtures coming up. And Scott N116 is saying dropped Van Dijk, I believe, to Perisic
and Neto to gross. Wish I went with Walker or Cucurella instead of Perisic, but it is what it is. Hey, this is the big thing right now, and why it's starting to get a little bit more tastier in FPL, because we had our template and now managers have the kind of decision right now. Do we go for what I would class the safer option in Kyle Walker and go for that Man City clean sheet, because you're not bringing in Kyle Walker for attack and returns? Or do we go a bit more maverick, differential? We go for Perisic, who pretty much is going to be a 60-minute man, but the upside potentially could be phenomenal. So yeah, it's worth noting that someone I'm considering right now is Perisic, but I really do hope that does full well for you this game week. And the Elf is saying, I just got my team sorted because this will be my first game week. I think I'm behind though. Thoughts, what do you think of Maddison also? Yeah, at the end of the day, if it is your kind of first time, just enjoy the game. That is the main thing right now. And in terms of Maddison, again, probably been the go-to 8 million right now. He's been in good form. I want to see how Tielemans and Fofana kind of not wanting to play for the team is going to impact them from a team kind of morale perspective. We need to remember Harvey Barnes is back, which could be a big boost for Leicester, a really important cog in their team. That's going to shift the way they play a little bit. They're going to be looking to really use the pace of Vardy and Barnes getting in behind the defence. It's going to be more space for Maddison created in those pockets. So, yes, I like Maddison. It's no doubt about it. It's just how you get in there. That's the one thing I would say. And Crickfoot Edits is saying, I think that Odin is best than... I think that's Odegaard, if it is... Oh, Foden, sorry. Yes, I think Foden naturally is always going to be the appealing option. Saka last season was the go-to option. There's no denying. I think he was 6.5 million. Because of the price point of Martinelli, it's naturally put that mindset where, is Saka really worth that 2 million more, or 1.7 or whatever it is? Now, the upside of Foden is obviously massive. It's just the game time, whereas Saka, we know, is getting guaranteed game time week in, week out. So keep putting the comments in the chat, guys. The questions in the chat, make sure you are dropping them in. And again, guys, if you can get us to 50 likes, that would be massively appreciated, as always, if you are enjoying the stream. I'm going to put up a captaincy slide now so we can look at the captaincy going forward. Prior to this, I want you guys to drop me in the comments, who is your current captaincy right now ahead of game week 3? Okay, guys, so a quick caveat just before we go into detail on this. You will notice that the predicted points is slightly different to what we had on the previous slide. That is just because naturally they do organically change day in, day out. Again, if you want to keep fully up to date with the predicted points, make sure you do head over to fantasyfootballfix.com. We've currently got what was yesterday's predicted points for Salah. They've come slightly down to 6.1, but again, still the standout option based on our predicted points going into game week 3. So these are currently right now the standout options: Mo Salah, Haaland, and Gabriel Jesus. It's worth mentioning, as I mentioned, differential-wise, Son and Kane are phenomenal options at home to Wolves. But based on the ownership right now, I think the effective ownership of all three of these are going to be pretty staggering. Now, you can see there with the predicted points, Salah is leading the way. But the ownership is massively in Gabriel Jesus' favour. And I think with his recency bias that we're going to have, what he's done against Leicester, I think managers are going to be very compelled to go for the away fixture against Bournemouth. Now, on paper, Jesus does have the best fixture right now, and his ownership is monstrous, which means that his effective ownership is just naturally going to be big. It's going to be 120, 130%. I think Haaland against Newcastle, there's definitely an opportunity for goals for Haaland. There always is. The big question mark is minutes. Is he going to play every minute of that game? We still don't know. And Salah against Man United. Unfortunately, Man United fans, please do mute this right now. But Man United are, I would argue, an easier fixture than Newcastle. And Bournemouth, I'm not going to go at that low necessarily, but I do think that Man United is a brilliant fixture for Liverpool, and it has been historically. So the way I'm viewing it right now, I think if you're in a position right now where you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if Jesus can replicate what he done in game week 2, and I don't know whether Haaland is going to get guaranteed minutes. He might only play 70. Just go for Mo Salah. This guy is an FPL monster. Brilliant track record against Man United. A phenomenal player. I just think if you're going for that route, he's a midfielder as well, which is worth noting. So he gets an additional point for clean sheets, an additional point for a goal. That is a big factor that we do need to consider as well when we are looking at captaincy. Now, looking at the underlying stats for the teams that they are playing, the opponent's expected goals conceded, Man United 1.78 is absolutely atrocious. Now, some of you obviously are going to be anticipating that because they lost 4-0 against Brentford, and of course they lost against Brighton 2-1. But when we consider the likes of De Silva's goal, you think to yourself, what was that XG chance there? So it's really bad to see this sort of expected goals after two game weeks. Jesus. 1.1 expected goals conceded for Bournemouth. That's good viewing if you are in the market for Gabriel Jesus. And Haaland, Newcastle have an expected goals conceded of 0.9. So again, we know this. Newcastle defensively are improving. Under Eddie Howe, I would agree. So based on this, what are my conclusions? If I had to rank them right now, I probably would just go for Mo Salah 1, Jesus 2, Haaland 3. Now, the main reason being for that is just because Mo Salah gets an additional point for a goal and an additional point for clean sheets. The one caveat, yes, we know there is a potential strike in this Man United-Liverpool game. I would like to think that we have got enough time between when it became very public knowledge to the game that they are able to put things in place to stop the game getting postponed. But on the basis of it right now, guys, I think I probably would go Salah 1, Jesus 2, which contradicts my team right now. But again, ownership is a big part of FPL right now. We know if on Saturday morning we get kind of clued in that the effective ownership of Jesus is going to be 180%, we're going to feel very, very much like sheep going for the same option. So let me know in the chat, guys, what your thoughts are on the current captaincy ahead of game week 3. We're going to round off this live stream with just a big old Q&A. Again, if you want any of the slides put back up on the screen, please do let me know, and let's get involved in some of the last few questions. And I believe we have already passed 50 likes, which I massively appreciate you guys doing. If you can get to 100, obviously that's an added bonus, but just thank you so much for tuning in and getting us to 50 likes. Massively appreciated. So Zarkov saying Saka, Diaz or Tony. It's a very difficult one there because naturally all different positions. I think all are fantastic options. The way I'd view it right now, I think Martinelli is a better option than Saka, which gives you money in the bank. I think Diaz is the route to go for as a Liverpool third option. And Tony is a brilliant option at 7 million. Its projected points are fantastic. Paolo Vicente, I believe. Hi, do you think Gordon/Gray is a good punt? Okay, so I would go for Gray over Gordon. Now, I think Gordon is a better option, but because of the transfer news right now, I just think it's a little bit of a worry you bringing in Gordon for him potentially to move to Chelsea in a week's time. Yes, they have gone a little bit quiet, but I think there's enough of a worry right now to think I don't want to bring in Gordon just in case he does move. Whereas Gray, we know, has no real owner, people trying to buy him right now as we speak. Aditya saying no Ramsdale clean sheet. I hope so. I do hope for a Ramsdale clean sheet. Ravo3, hi, should I sell Robertson for James Zinchenko Perisic for a -4 and save money for next week? Look, I wouldn't be selling Robertson for a -4. Absolutely not. Playing against a Man United team that have only scored 1 goal in the 2 game weeks looked very, very poor going forward. Robertson as well, importantly, has attacking potential against this Man United defence. I would absolutely hold Robertson rather than take a -4. Scott116 is saying, since I have KDB over Salah, I'll be captaining Jesus. Yeah, I think that's logical. Hope it pays off for you. And Icon saying, is captaining Martinelli when I have Salah, Haaland and Jesus too wild this early on? Look, I'm not going to put off anybody if you have that gut feeling that, you guys know. You just get them weeks where you get that gut feeling. You think, yeah, I feel good on this guy. Go for it. I absolutely have no problems with it. But on an underlying stats perspective, I think the other 3 do trump him. So, look, if you fancy it, absolutely go for it. But I still would prefer Salah, Haaland, Jesus over Martinelli. Just checking out the chat, guys. Do apologise. Marcus has put a bit of a long question in, but I'll try and help out. Ramsdale, Trent, Robertson, Cancelo, Cash, Salah, Saka, Neto, Bailey, Haaland, Jesus, Subs, Ward, Patterson, Andreas, and Archer. I have 2 free transfers anyway. Okay, so firstly, what absolutely screams out to me right now is your combination of Cash, Neto, and Bailey. So it's very difficult right now for me to kind of like paint a picture of what I would do with these moves, but one route you could go down is downgrading Bailey to De Silva, freeing up a few funds. But I view a team as quite strong. I think Cash is probably the move that I would look to move out. Now, I see you've got no investment right now in a Chelsea defender. So my advice right now would be potentially moving what you could do, a midfielder down cheap and then upgrading Cash to Reece James. Or you do a sideways move of Cash to Cucurella. I think that's definitely an option worth considering. Oh, sorry. People were saying about no Ramsdale in terms of clean sheet. Yeah, Tom's covered that one. 4.2 projected points. It's still solid for game week 3. Luke saying, will Perisic start? Unfortunately, we don't have the absolute guaranteed news, but there's rumours that they have been training with him in a formation. And Mo Cherry is saying, time to let Neto go. Replace with Gross before the price drops/rise. Yes, so I think if you have Neto right now, look at the coming fixtures for you. Think to yourself, if I bench him this week, am I going to start him the following week? If it's a no, you sell him this week. And the reason being is because you're just going to be holding him for continual price falls. So on that basis, I think you sell him if that is your mindset. Edison and Region, don't ask, to Raya and Zinchenko. I love that, don't ask yet. Region is absolutely a sell for you. It's too much investment for a player who is going to not play week in, week out. Do I like them moves? Not really, because you're selling Edison, who I absolutely love as a Man City coverage, to the likes of Raya and Zinchenko. So I don't know Region's price point at the top of my head, but I would look for other alternatives rather than selling Edison for you. I would much rather you, for example, do Edison and Region to a Man City coverage in defence. Thoughts on Solly March? Don't mind him at all. But again, just difficult to get a bit of an understanding of whether he's going to emerge as a good option or not after 2 game weeks. I like him as a punt if you are thinking about that though. And Walker plus Tony or TA plus Greenwood, I absolutely would say, I say absolutely. Walker plus Tony, I think I foresee more cumulative points over the coming game weeks, but I obviously think Trent is a fantastic option, but I would much rather feel confident having the squad depth of Walker plus Tony in my team. A Chicha saying, I have to play 2 of Mount, Patterson, Bailey. Currently playing Mount and Patterson. But if Mount blanks, is it worth taking out Mount / Bailey? I would start Mount and Patterson of the 2. And obviously, I think Bailey is a sell for you and your team. Who do I put in my team? Jensen or De Silva? I would go De Silva because he is cheaper. Can you show your game week 3 team? Okay, so some people have dropped into the chat, haven't seen my team. So I'm going to put my screen back up on my team back up on screen for you guys. Now, it is worth mentioning again, if you guys are tuned in since the start, I do apologize for repeating myself. I'm just putting this up for those that don't know. This is my current team right now. Now, it's worth noting, the captaincy is literally being clicked every 2 seconds from Jesus to Salah to back to Jesus. So it is worth noting that. And again, I have my Instagram, my Twitter profile there. If you do want to keep track of my personal team, you can check that out over on Twitter. But I have 2 free transfers and money in the bank, and I absolutely am desperate to do Trippier to Perisic, but I'm waiting right now for the potential team news. It is the early kickoff on the Saturday, so I'm anticipating we might get enough team news. And for those managers right now that are Trippier owners, and you are also flirting with the idea of Perisic, if you look at obviously the price predictor over on fantasyfootballfix.com, and you can see that none of your players are falling or rising in price and you're good to go, I would wait until tomorrow. That is my advice, just in case we get that team news. Because if you see that Perisic just started, 60 minutes of Perisic against Wolves is enough for me to go all in on him and try and go for that kind of upside chasing. So that's my thought process right now. Yes, I am a Neto owner. I'm currently debating right now, will I play him in game week 4 onwards? If the answer is yes, I will hold him, because otherwise his price will fall between now and game week 4. Absolutely. And Meath is saying triple captain Salah. I wouldn't triple captain Salah. Personally, I would wait for double game weeks that emerge later on in the season. Cheeks is saying best replacement for Robertson. I have 1.4 million in the bank and also looking to upgrade Neto and Bailey, although not this week as I only have 1 free transfer. Okay, so the one question I would have for you is if you have the money in the bank and you do downgrade Robertson, but you don't have the free transfers to upgrade the other player, I would question maybe just rolling with Robertson this week and then having the 2 free transfers next week to upgrade your team with the 2 free transfers. That would probably be my recommendation. If I bring Maddison in, I'll captain him against the Saints. If not, Kane's my captain. Hope that pays off well for you. No way you just call him Jesus like the Bible Jesus. Yeah, I do apologise. My pronunciations of players are absolutely shocking. When last season I called Region Regulian like a spaghetti. It was terrible. Who do you think will have the highest EO? I think Jesus will have the highest EO there. I've got that name right there. Yes, I think his ownership right now is 77%, and I see a lot of capacity on him. Naturally, his effective ownership is going to be ridiculous. Lucas is saying, I have 1 free transfer and thinking of doing Wilson to Tony. Look, I think that's I wouldn't class it a luxury move. I really do like it this week. I'll look at the rest of your team, think to yourself, does my team require 2 free transfers? If it does, I would roll the transfer because I think Wilson could score anytime, any place. Otherwise, I'd like the move to Tony because long-term Tony looks like a fantastic option. Okay, I see I'm quite far back on the chat, so I'm going to try and fly through these guys before we wrap up the chat. Opinion on Cancelo captain this week. I don't mind it, but I think Newcastle could be good for a goal, so I do prefer the likes of Haaland, Jesus and Salah. Troma Kid Cinema Mage, you don't have as many followers. I really do appreciate that. But again, it's all about the quality of you guys in the chat. That's all that matters. We do really appreciate everybody that does tune into these live streams and tunes into our daily content. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. We do massively appreciate all the subscribers that we have right now. I think you guys do enjoy the content and we love putting the content out for you guys. Reece James captain, again, I don't mind it, but I prefer the other attacking options. A decent replacement for Liam Delap. So I'm going to anticipate Delap is a 4.5 million. Now, it sounds really bad, but I actually don't know whether he is a forward or a midfielder. So let me know in the chat on that one there. FPL Bannon said, I've wildcarded this week. Due to planned free transfers moving into game week 9, it's highly unlikely we will change more than 4 players. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the template is going to be difficult for us to emerge, to move away from. You can see on my screen here, some players here, it just sounds mad to think we were going to go without them. Cancelo, Trent, James, Salah, Diaz, Martinez, Jesus, Haaland. I can't envisage a world right now where I go without those players, but who knows? Crazy things happen, teams change, things will happen. It's just it's always the case. Start of the season, everybody panics that the team is template and the season's just going to be boring. So much happens in football. There's inevitably so much going on. Should we target Bournemouth or Man United? That's the question right now. I think the problem with Man United is such a big club. They can't afford to put 2 banks of 5 behind the ball. Like, they got to actually be Man United, and that just opens them up for Liverpool to attack them. So, you know, in a crazy world, probably Man United I'll target. Best 4.5 million defender. Look, I'm probably going to throw Dunk up there right now just because of the long-term fixtures for him. I haven't seen anything else out right that I absolutely love. Is a Liverpool wing-back a must? Look, I think Trent is a fantastic option to hold long-term. Don't think about the recent returns. He's a long-term hold. I think he's a brilliant option. Walker or Ake, I'd probably go Walker. I think Ake has been fantastic for Man City, but I just anticipate, I do anticipate Laporte just to step in at some point. Why is Neto benched? Neto's benched because of that tricky Tottenham fixture that they do have. Lots of rumours of Perisic might start. Yeah, that is where we are hearing the rumours from over on Instagram, I believe. I'm saying Neto will get a goal tomorrow. Hopefully not, if I'm going to be benching him. Okay, guys, we're going to answer a few more questions. I'm conscious I've been going on for over an hour, and you guys have got your Friday evenings or wherever. Again, let me know in the chat, guys, where are you tuning in from right now? Let me know in the chat. It's always great to hear, because I always kind of naively think that everybody's tuning in from England, where I'm from. It's amazing to hear where you guys in the world are tuning in from. It's great to see we have people from all over the world. It's fantastic to see. Got double Liverpool defence with no Salah and Haaland. Got Sterling, De Bruyne, Tony, Jesus and Watkins up front. Look, perfect example of a team that is going outside the template. I really hope that pays off for you there. Patterson or Nico Williams, who'd bench? I see Everton clean sheet. If you see an Everton clean sheet, I think that's answered your question there. You go for Patterson. Yeah, I have no kind of thing to add on that, really. I hope that works for you. Whom to captain, Chief? That's a great question, buddy. We did a coverage on captaincy about 15 minutes ago. The current way I'm ranking it, and I know it's contradicting on what my team is right now, but I'm currently going for, off the top of my head, Salah 1, Jesus 2, Haaland 3. Main reason I'm currently swaying towards Salah is just because of the extra point for a midfielder and for a clean sheet. But I think Jesus is a fantastic option. Ryan saying, Ryan saying he's a 4.5 million forward. Unfortunately, Delap, there's just no real alternative for you. I think you just kind of stick with it, or because he's obviously not in the league anymore, it's a very difficult one to suggest. Look, you need to either upgrade or just move it to another 4.5 in Archer. I watched your exploits at the FPL Creators match. Nacho, you were an absolute beast. Really do appreciate it, buddy. Yes, I'm looking forward to the rematch. There will be a Game Week 39 rematch. Definitely keep an eye out for it. Jack, Grealish or Dewsbury Hall just for this week? I would have to say Dewsbury Hall because I know that his game time is pretty secure. I couldn't sit here and confidently tell you that Grealish is going to start, and on that premise, Dewsbury Hall would be my choice. Kulusevski or Diaz? I would go for, of the two, Diaz still. I saw good things from Diaz. Shout out to FPL Nacho being a great host. Thank you very much. That is great to hear. Is it smart to vice captain Diaz over Jesus? Look, if you think Diaz has got a brilliant fixture against Man United, I think it's good. The one thing I would say to you is, if you're a captain in Salah or another Liverpool player, I wouldn't do that, because then you have the potential of, if a game ever got cancelled, both your captain and vice captain not having a fixture that week. Rodrigo or Gross or both? Bench Rodrigo for game week 4. In terms of bringing in, I would probably prefer for you to bring in Pascal Gross this week, because I think Rodrigo, next 2 fixtures, Chelsea and Brighton away, are tricky fixtures. Maddison versus Diaz, I would probably still go for Diaz, but again, I think Maddison has been a bit of an under-radar pick right now. Cucurella or Walker, something that I'm discussing right now and debating. I think the first question you need to ask yourself is, do you have Chelsea coverage? If it's no, you go Cucurella. Similar, but I'm assuming you're going to have Cancelo. Of the teams that I would want to double up on, Man City would be the one I'd feel more comfortable doubling up on. As a Chelsea fan speaking, the injury to Kante is quite important. And the fact that Kovacic is still out means that we're probably going to be playing a midfield 2 of Jorginho and Gallagher. Gallagher has played literally no minutes in this Chelsea team against a Leeds team that have been, confident over the start of the season. It wouldn't shock me if we conceded against them. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Josh, no, you're not too late. Hey Nacho, mount to Kulusevski/Diaz for a hit to avoid the price drop. Josh, it's incredibly tough because I do foresee opportunities for Mount in this game against Leeds. I think there are pockets where Mount has been picking up, which he will capitalise against a team like Leeds. So, look, I know the price fall is going to be very difficult. And if you really want to maintain the price point, yes, moving to Diaz or Kulusevski is a smart move, but I don't foresee you getting instant returns on your -4. I would only make that move if, on a mindset perspective, you're viewing it as a 2, 3, 4 game week move. If that's the case, the -4 is okay, but I'm not huge on it. Just trying not to duplicate. Okay, so we got Pets from Bedford, Paolo from Qatar, Aditya from Mumbai, India, Scott from Berlin, originally from Ireland though, more India, Beat Factory from South Africa, Mike from Greece, I'd love to be there right now, absolutely, Lorenzo from Trinidad, Josh from Uganda, these are awesome to hear, Basil from Egypt, FPL from Aberdeen, Ohio in the States, Joe is, Keith in Botswana, this is awesome to hear, it's quality, it's so good to hear the kind of where everyone in the world is, Enable from Hong Kong. That is awesome to hear, guys. All across the world, it makes me sad to be sat in my room right now in Gloucestershire, England. FPL Fizi from Lagos as well. That's amazing. Okay, so we're going to be wrapping this up, guys. We're going to fly through the questions. I'm conscious that we've still got plenty of people on. I don't want to be missing out on any questions, but I do have to end it at some point, unfortunately. So if you are dipping off, please do drop a like on your way out. I'm going to try and fly through some questions. Let's go. But I would massively appreciate if we can get to 100 likes. It'll be massively appreciated, guys, but I am conscious it is a bit of a stretch. Currently at 68 likes. Salah or Casemiro? What a shout. Gotta be Salah there. Cucurella Walker, I think I've covered that one, so hopefully that helped. Why does everyone have Delap? Yeah, I'm not too sure on that one, Sim. Who better to start for Bailey? Either Nico Williams or Andreas. Who to captain? Okay, so I would start Andreas over Nico, but we need to get an understanding on whether he's actually fit. If not, you go for Nico. Captaincy, the way I'm ranking it right now is Salah 1, Jesus 2, Haaland 3. But again, it is very much up to your own how you view captaincy. Son or Diaz? Well, I would go for Son of the two, but the price point is quite a difference there. Salah or Kante, these comparisons. Wildcard this week, that is all about what your team is looking like. If you started poorly and you think the wildcard could turn your season, then I'm not going to be the one to sit here and say not to do it. Sterling or Walker? In terms of starting, you got to start Sterling. Watching from France, Harrison is, that's awesome. Muad's from Malaysia. Vijay Gloucestershire's good. That's good. I'm glad you've had good experiences of it. At Noise saying, I'm from Jamaica. That's awesome. Andreas or De Silva, I would start. If Andreas is fit, I would go Andreas personally. If not, then De Silva is an easy one for you to go. So, guys, that is going to wrap up the live stream. Massively appreciate all you guys tuning in. It's been one of the best ones we've had this season so far. Massive engagement, which is amazing for you guys to get involved. And I hope you guys have appreciated the slides that we've been putting out and the the coverage that we've been trying to cover, all the hot topics, all in this one live stream within an hour, which is sometimes very, very difficult to go for. So thank you very much for you guys tuning in. I hope you've had a fantastic week and your game week 3 is going to be full of green arrows. Make sure you do drop a like on the way out. And if you did enjoy the stream and it's your first time, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. We're dropping live streams every Friday and we do drop weekly content, so make sure you do check out some of the stuff we've done this week. I think it would offer some great value even now with the deadline being so close. I believe it's about 12 hours time or 15 hours. So thank you very much guys tuning in. Make sure you do check out Fantasy Football Fix. All the information is in the bio. And one thing I would leave on the way out guys is make sure you do check out the Fantasy Football Fix app. It is free to download. The reason I recommend it first and foremost is to track those price changes. Tom's put the link in the bio. Honestly guys, it's one of the biggest things that you could do at the start of the season is not miss out on those price changes, because it can be the difference between you having the player you want and missing out on the player that you want. So that is a big factor that I would recommend you guys checking out. Thank you very much for the kind words guys. I will see you in the next live stream. Take care. Cheers.